In this module, you will learn about key concepts of Gestalt counseling, understand the major constructs of the Gestalt approach to counseling, explain the counseling processes involved in the Gestalt paradigm, and examine the procedures and intervention strategies and techniques of Gestalt counseling. Gestalt counseling, developed by Fritz Perls and his wife Laura in the 1940s, is an existential or phenomenological approach based on the premise that individuals must be understood in the context of their ongoing relationship with the environment. The initial goal is for clients to gain access or awareness of what they are experiencing and doing. Through this awareness, change automatically occurs. The approach is phenomenological because it focuses on the client's perceptions of reality, and existential because it is grounded in the notion that people are always in the progress of becoming, remaking, and rediscovering themselves. Gestalt counseling is lively and promotes direct experiencing rather than the abstractedness of talking about situations. The approach is experiential in that clients come to grips with what and how they are thinking, feeling, and doing as they interact with the counselor. Gestalt counselors value being fully present during the counseling process, and growth occurs out of genuine contact between the client and the counselor. This approach focuses much more on process than on content. It emphasizes what is being presently experienced rather than the content of what clients reveal. Pearls asserted that how individuals behave in the present moment is far more crucial to self-understanding than why they behave as they do. One of the counselor's roles is to devise experiments designed to increase clients' self-awareness of what they are doing and how they are doing it. Awareness includes insight, self-acceptance, knowledge of the environment, responsibility for choices, and ability to make contact with others. It is based on a here and now experience that is always changing. Clients are expected to do their own seeing, feeling, sensing, and interpreting, as opposed to waiting passively for the counselor to give them insights and answers.
Fritz Perls' conception of human nature is that clients are manipulative and avoid self-reliance and responsibility. Given this basic assumption, the Gestalt counselor's function is to confront and frustrate the client's escape from responsibility. Perls practiced Gestalt counseling paternalistically. Clients have to grow up, stand on their own 2 feet, and deal with their life problems themselves. His style of doing counseling involved two personal agendas: moving the client from environment support to self support, and reintegrating the disowned parts of personality. In the contrast to Pearl's way of working, contemporary Gestalt counseling stress dialogue between the client and the counselor. The counselor has no agenda, no desire to get anywhere, and understands that the essential nature of the individual's relationship with the environment is interdependence, not independence. This approach creates the ground for contact and experiments that are spontaneous or organic to the moment to movement experience of the counseling engagement. The Gestalt view of human nature is rooted in existential philosophy, phenomenology, and field theory. Genuine knowledge is the product of what is immediately evident in the experience of the perceiver. Counseling aims not at analysis but at awareness and contact with the environment. The environment or field consists of both the external and internal world. The quality of contact with aspects of the external world and the internal world is monitored. The process of recovering parts of oneself that have been disowned and the unification process proceed step by step until clients become strong enough to carry on with their own personal growth. By becoming aware, clients become able to make informed choices and thus to live a meaningful existence. A basic assumption of Gestalt counseling is that individuals have the capacity to self regulate in their environment if they are fully aware of what is happening in and around them. Counseling provides the setting and opportunity for that awareness and contacting processes to be supported and restored. The Gestalt theory of change posits that the more we attempt to be whom or what we are not, the more we remain the same. Weiser suggested that it is not possible to change something about ourselves by trying to be different. According to his paradoxical theory of change, we change when we become aware of what we are as opposed to trying to become what we are not. It is important for clients to be as fully as possible in their current position rather than striving to become what they should be. Rather than being a change agent, Baser sees the role of the counselor as assisting the client to increase awareness, which will allow re identification with the part of the self from which she or he is alienated. Holism. According to Latner, holism is one of the foundational principles of Gestalt counseling. All of nature is seen as a unified and coherent whole, and the whole is different from the sum of its parts. We can only be understood to the extent that we take into consideration all dimensions of human functioning. Because Gestalt counselors are interested in the whole person, they place no superior value on a particular aspect of the individual. Gestalt practice attends to a client's thought, feelings, behaviors, body, and dreams. The emphasis is on integration, how the parts fit together, and how the individual makes contact with the environment. Field theory. Gestalt counseling is based on field theory, which is grounded on the principle that the organism must be seen in its environment or in its context as a part of the constantly changing field. Gestalt counseling rests on the principle that everything is relational, in flux, interrelated, and in process. Gestalt therapists pay attention to and explore what is occurring at the boundary between the person and the environment. The figure formation process. Derived from the field of visual perception by a group of Gestalt psychologists, the figure formation process describes how the individual organizes the environment from moment to moment. In Gestalt counseling, the undifferentiated field is called the background or ground, and the emerging focus of attention is called the figure. The figure formation process tracks how some aspect of the environmental field emerges from the background and becomes the focal point of the individual's attention and interest. The dominant needs of an individual at a given moment influence this process. The present is the most significant in Gestalt counseling. One of the main contributions of the Gestalt approach is its emphasis on learning to appreciate and fully experience the present moment. Focusing on the past can be a way to avoid coming to terms with the present. In speaking of the now ethos, Polster and Polster developed the thesis that power is in the present. Many people invest their energies in bemoaning their past mistakes and ruminating about how life could and should have been different, or they engage in endless resolutions and plans for the future. As they direct their energy towards what was or what might have been, the power of the present diminishes. To help the client make contact with the present moment, the Gestalt counselors ask what and how questions but rarely ask why questions. To promote now awareness, the counselor encourages a dialogue in the present tense by asking questions such as what is happening now? What is going on now? What are you experiencing as you sit there and attempt to talk? How are you experiencing your fear? How are you attempting to withdraw at this moment? Most people can stay in the present for only a short while and are inclined to find ways of interrupting the flow of the present. Instead of experiencing their feelings in the here and now, clients often talk about their feelings almost as if their feelings were detached from their present experiencing. A Gestalt counselor's aim is to help clients make contact with their experience with vividness and immediacy. Thus, if a client begins to talk about sadness, pain, or confusion, the counselor makes every attempt to have the client experience that sadness, pain, or confusion now. As the client attends to the present experience, the counselor gauges how much anxiety or discomfort is present and chooses further interventions accordingly. The counselor might choose to allow the client to flee from the present moment, only to extend another invitation several minutes later. If a feeling emerges, the counselor might suggest an experiment that would allow the client to become more aware of the feeling. Gestalt counselor recognizes that the past will make regular appearances in the present moment, usually because of some lack of completion of that past experience. When the past seems to have a significant bearing on client's present attitudes or behavior, it is dealt with by bringing it into the present as much as possible. Thus, when clients speak about their past, the counselor may ask them to reenact it as though they were living it now. The counselor directs clients to bring the fantasy here and strive to relive the feelings they experienced earlier. For example, rather than talking about a past childhood trauma with her father, a client becomes the child and talks directly to her father in the fantasy. When figures emerge from the background but are not completed and resolved, individuals are left with unfinished business, which can be manifested in unexpressed feelings such as resentment, rage, hatred, pain, anxiety, grief, guilt, and abandonment. Because the feelings are not fully experienced in awareness, they linger in the background and are carried into present life in ways that interfere with effective contact with oneself and others. Unfinished business persists until the individual faces and deals with the unexpressed feelings. In speaking of the effects of unfinished business, Polster and Polster maintained that these incomplete directions do seek completion, and when they get powerful enough, the individual is beset with preoccupation, compulsive behavior, weariness, oppressive energy, and much self defeating behavior. The effects of unfinished business often show up in some blockage within the body. Gestalt counselors emphasize paying attention to the bodily experience on the assumption that if feelings are unexpressed, they tend to result in some physical symptom. Unacknowledged feelings create unnecessary emotional debris that clutters present centered awareness. For example, consider a man who never really felt loved and accepted by his mother. No matter how he sought her approval, he was always left feeling that he was not adequate. In an attempt to deflect the direction of his need for maternal approval in the present, he may look to women for his confirmation of worth as a man. In developing a variety of games to get women to approve of him, he reports that he is still not satisfied. The unfinished business is preventing him from authentic intimacy with women because his need is that of a child rather than an adult. He needs to return to the old business and express his unacknowledged feeling of disappointment to achieve closure. He will have to tolerate the uncomfortable feeling that accompanies him recognizing and working through this impasse. The impasse or stuck point is a situation in which individuals believe they are unable to support themselves and thus seek external support. The counselor's task is to help clients by providing situations that encourage them to fully experience their condition of being stuck. By completely experiencing the impasse, they are able to get into contact with their frustrations and accept whatever is, rather than wishing they were different. Gestalt counseling is based on the notion that individuals have a striving toward actualization and growth, and that if they accept all aspects of themselves without judging these dimensions, they can begin to think, feel, and act differently. Personality as peeling an onion. Pearls likens the unfolding of adult personality to peeling an onion. To achieve psychological maturity, individuals must strip off 5 layers of neurosis. These superimposed growth disorders are the phony, the phobic, the impasse, the implosive, and the explosive. The first layer we encounter is the phony layer. It consists of reacting to others in stereotypical and inauthentic ways. This is the level where we play games and get lost in roles. By behaving as if we were a person that we are not, we are trying to live up to a fantasy that we or others have created. Once we become aware of the phoniness of game playing and become more honest, we experience unpleasantness and pain. The next layer we encounter is the phobic layer. At this level, we attempt to avoid the emotional pain associated with seeing aspects of ourselves that we would prefer to deny. Our resistance to accepting ourselves the way we actually are arise. We have catastrophic fears that if we recognize who we really are and present that side of ourselves to others, they will surely reject us. Beneath the phobic layer is the impasse, or the point we got stuck at in our own maturation. Typically, this is the time when we attempt to manipulate the environment to do our seeing, hearing, feeling, thinking, and deciding for us. At the impasse, we often feel a sense of deadness and feel that we are nothing. If we hope to feel alive, it is essential that we get through the impasse. If we allow ourselves to fully experience our deadness rather than denying it or running away, the implosive level comes into being. Pearls writes that it is necessary to go through this implosive layer to get the authentic self. By getting into contact with this layer, we expose our defenses and begin to make contact with our genuine self. Pearls contends that peeling back the implosive layer creates an explosive state. When we contact the explosive layer, we let go of phony roles and pretenses, and we release a tremendous amount of energy that we have been holding in by pretending to be who we are not. To become alive and authentic, it is necessary to achieve this explosion into pain and into joy. Contact and resistances to contact. In Gestalt counseling, contact is necessary if change and growth are to occur. When we make contact with the environment, change is inevitable. Contact is made by seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, and moving. Effective contact means interacting with nature and with other people without losing one's sense of individuality. It is the continually renewed creative adjustment of individuals to their environment. Prerequisites for good contact are clear awareness, full energy, and the ability to express oneself. Miriam Polster claims that contact is the lifeblood of growth. It entails jest, imagination, and creativity. There are only moments of this type of contact, So, it is the most accurate to think of levels of contact rather than a final state to achieve. After a contact experience, there is typically a withdrawal to integrate what has been learned. The Gestalt counselor also focused on resistances to contact, which are defenses we develop to prevent us from experiencing the present in a full and real way. Polster and Polster describe five major channels of resistance that are challenged in Gestalt counseling. First, introjection; second, projection; third, retroflexion; fourth, deflection; and fifth, confluence. Introjection is the tendency to uncritically accept others' beliefs and standards without assimilating them to make congruent with who we are. These introjects remain alien to us because we have not analyzed and restructured them. When we introject, we passively incorporate what the environment provides, spending little time on becoming clear about what we want or need. If we remain in this stage, our energy is bound up in taking things as we find them. Projection is the reverse of introjection. Introjection, we disown certain aspects of ourselves by assigning them to the environment. When we are projecting, we have trouble distinguishing between the inside world and the outside world. Those attributes of our personality that are inconsistent with our self image are disowned and put onto other people. By seeing in others the very qualities that we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves, we avoid taking responsibility for our own feeling and the person who we are, and this keeps us powerless to initiate change. Retroflexion. It consists of turning back to ourselves what we would like to do to someone else, or doing ourselves what we would like someone else to do to us. If we lash out and injure ourselves, for example, we are often directing aggression inward that we are fearful of directing towards others. This process seriously restricts engagement between the person and his or her environment. Typically, these maladaptive styles of functioning are adopted out of our awareness. The part of the process of Gestalt counseling is to help us to discover a self regulatory system so that we can deal realistically with the world. Deflection. It is the process of distraction so that it is difficult to maintain a sustained sense of contact. People who deflect attempt to diffuse contact through the overuse of humor, abstract generalizations, and questions rather than statements. They engage their environment on an inconsistent basis, which result in their feeling a sense of emotional depletion. Deflection involves a diminished emotional experience. People who deflect speak through and for others. Confluence. It involves a blurring of the differentiation between the self and the environment. For people who are oriented toward blending in, there is no clear demarcation between internal experience and outer reality. Confluence in relationship involves an absence of conflicts, or a belief that all parties experience the same feelings and thoughts. It is a style of contact characteristic of clients who have a high need to be accepted and liked. It is a way of staying safe by going along with others and not expressing one's true feelings and opinions. This condition makes genuine contact extremely difficult. Introjection, projection, retroflexion, deflection, and confluence represents styles of resisting contact. The concern of Gestalt counselor is the interruption of contact with the environment when the individual is unaware of this process. Terms such as resistance to contact or boundary disturbance refer to the characteristic styles people employ in their attempts to control their environment. The premise in Gestalt counseling is that contact is both normal and healthy, and clients are encouraged to become increasingly aware of their dominant style of blocking contact, energy, and blocks to energy. In Gestalt counseling, special attention is given to where energy is located, how it is used, and how it can be blocked. Blocked energy is another form of resistance. It can be manifested by tension in some part of the body. It can be manifested by tension in some part of the body, by posture, by keeping one's body tight and closed, by not breathing deeply, by looking away from people when speaking as a way to avoid contact, by choking off sensations, by numbing feelings, and by speaking with a restricted voice, to mention only a few. The Gestalt counselor is especially interested in interruptions between sensation and awareness, interruptions between awareness and mobilization of energy, and interruptions between mobilization of energy and action. Much of the therapeutic endeavor involves finding the focus of interrupted energy and bringing these sensations to the client's awareness. Clients may not be aware of their energy or where it is located, and when they may experience it in a negative way. Zinker believes counseling at its best involves a dynamic relationship that awakens and nourishes the client without sapping the therapist of his or her own energy. He maintains that it is the counselor's job to help clients locate the ways in which they are blocking energy and transform this blocked energy into more adaptive behaviors. Clients can be encouraged to recognize how their resistance is being expressed in their body. Rather than trying to rid themselves of certain bodily symptoms, clients can be encouraged to delve fully into tension states. By allowing themselves to exaggerate their tight mouth and shaking legs, they discover for themselves how they are diverting energy and keeping themselves from a full expression of aliveness. Differentiation and contact. In Gestalt counseling, a healthy individual is one who can differentiate self while also making contact with others. Contact involves the ability to be fully present in the moment and available. In fact, life is described as a constant process of contact and separation between the person and the person is in relationship with, like family members and loved ones, colleagues, employers. Contact and differentiation, connection and separation define a goal of Gestalt counseling, which is to help clients become more integrated within themselves and in relationship to others. In other words, Gestalt counseling helps to create differentiated unity. Differentiated unity for the client as a whole person means awareness of thoughts, feelings, and senses, an integration of mind and body. Boundaries. For survival, the organism, that is, the individual, must make contact with the environment. The function of the individual's boundary is to simultaneously be firm enough to differentiate self from others, yet be open or permeable enough to make contact with others. In this process, the individual assimilates nourishment from the environment and rejects or keeps out that which is not nourishing. Boundary disturbance occurs when boundaries between self and others are overly rigid, creating isolation, or are overly permeable, creating a merger in which differentiation of self is lost to confluence with the other. Examples of boundary disturbances include retroflexion, introjection, projection, and deflection. Dichotomies and polarities. Dichotomies are unnatural splits in which a field is made up of separate, either or parts instead of integrated elements in relationship to one another that form a whole. Polarities, however, are a natural part of fields. Fields are differentiated into polarities, opposite parts that work in tandem or contrast to one another to help clarifying meaning. When integration fails, splits occur. The part of the person, those elements of mind and body that make her or him what she or he are experienced as separate, not integrated. A mother may dichotomize her capacity to be caretaker from her ability to care for herself. Yet, health is found in integration, where difference is accepted and various parts of the self work together. Awareness. A major goal of Gestalt counseling is awareness. Through awareness, the organism naturally proceeds towards growth, integration, and differentiated unity in which the parts of the field are separate from and in contact with one another. The premise is that persons have the capacity to be aware of their own needs and priorities. Persons can accurately know themselves and the environments of which they are a part, and make decisions that are congruent with their growth. Awareness, knowing the environment, and being in touch with oneself means that the individual is responsible for self knowledge, self acceptance, the ability to make contact, and ultimately to make choices. In Gestalt counseling, clients are directed to move from talking about experience to directly experiencing what they are focusing on at any given moment in counseling and therapy. For instance, experiencing and expressing feelings is different as a process from talking about those very same feelings. Thus, Pearls differentiated between intellectualization and the direct experience, and thus increased awareness of thoughts, feelings, and senses. Often people have more choices or are unconsciously making choices that constrict their lives and growth potential. Children do not choose the family they are born into, but when they begin to mature, they do have choices about familial values they do or do not accept as congruent with their emerging sense of self. Similarly, parents do not choose the specific child they give birth to, but they do choose how to parent. Responsibility. In Gestalt counseling, clients are seen as responsible or response able. They have the ability to respond to their environment appropriately and flexibly. Although it may be important to distinguish between true limitations and real alternatives, ultimately each client has the responsibility to choose and value, to create a healthy balance between self and surroundings. To accomplish this, the client must address unfinished business. Through increased conscious awareness, the client also discovers disowned parts of self. These disowned parts of self are raised into awareness, considered and assimilated if congruent with the core of the client's true self. The parts are rejected because they are alien to the client's deepest sense of self. This process of re-owning and taking responsibility facilitates integration. In Gestalt counseling, both client and counselor are self-responsible. Counselors are responsible for the nature of their presence with the client. They must have both self-knowledge and knowledge of the client. They maintain non-defensiveness while keeping their awareness and contact processes clear and in tune with the client. Shoulds. Arbitrary regulation creates shoulds that can control clients' thoughts, feelings, actions, and relationships. Any counselor who has worked with clients has often seen the pull between clients' sense of what they should think, feel, or do, and the emerging awareness of what they in actual do, think, feel, and want to do. Gestalt counseling places a high value on autonomy and self determination. Although it maintains a no should ethic, there is one exception, that is, the situation. Pearls believed that when clients understand the situation they find themselves in and allow it to shape their actions, they have begun to learn how to cope with life. Thou, what, and how, here and now. A summary of Gestalt counseling is reflected in the phrase I, thou, what, and how, here and now, which was derived from the philosophical writings of Martin. The counselor and client form an alliance based on self responsibility and an agreement to strive to be present with one another during their time together. Furthermore, the focus is on the what and how of a client's experience in the present and in the moments when counselor and clients are together. Client and the counselor explore together through experiments that reveal what the client does and how it is done. Melnick et al. Stated that the experiment is one method of teaching the client in which the client can learn. A here and now focus on the what and how of the client's internal and external processes increase awareness, which is a necessity for growth and a focus of the experiment. The counselor is aware of the centrality of the relationship between the client and the therapist and tends to do it by being present, respectful of the client's capacity to heal and grow, and willing to be an authentic person in the therapeutic relationship. The relationship is viewed as horizontal, not vertical. Thus, the two seek equality in relation to one another. In this, the process counselor may choose, when appropriate, to share his or her own experience in the moment, as it helps to facilitate the client's awareness. Direct experience is the tool used to expand awareness. The focus on the client's present experience is made deeper and broader as counseling unfolds. Awareness is viewed as occurring now. It takes place now, although prior events can be the object of present awareness. Although the event took place in the past, the focus is on the awareness of to that is taking place in the now, in this moment. Therefore, the present is understood as an ever moving transition between past and future.
An attempt is being made to help you gain an insight into Gestalt counseling through a session. A case example with Fritz Perls, who is the counselor, and Beverly, who is the client. The counseling session begins with Beverly. I guess I'm supposed to say something. I don't have any interesting dreams. Mine are a sort of patent.
Are you aware that you're defensive? I did not ask you in only to bring dreams.
You asked for them last night, and I was afraid that would disqualify me. If I could manufacture a few,
Now you have a very interesting posture. The left leg supports the right leg supports the right hand supports the left hand.
yes, it gives me something to hang on to. And with a lot of people out there, you kind of get some stage fright. There are so many of them.
You have stage fright, and there are people outside. In other words, you are on stage.
Yes, I suppose. I feel that way.
Well, what about getting in touch with your audience?
Well, they look very good. They have wonderful faces.
Tell this to them.
You have warm faces, very interested, very interesting, with a lot of warmth.
So then, shuttle back to your stage fright. What do you experience now?
I don't have any more stage fright. But my husband does not look at me.
So go back to your husband.
Husband, You are the only one that looks self conscious. Nobody else looks self conscious at me. You sort of feel like you are up here, don't you? Or sort of like your youngsters up here. No? Somebody from the audience yells and asks the husband to answer.
Well, she's the one who's up there and she's trying to place me up there.
Yes, you have got to answer to Beverly. You have to know what it feels.
Well, he does not usually answer. Did you want him out of character?
So you are a clobberer.
You need an ashtray.
I need an ashtray. She knows what I need.
Oh no, you have one.
Now I get stage fright. I always have difficulties in dealing with Jewish mothers.
Don't you like Jewish mothers?
Oh, I love them, especially their matzo ball soup.
I'm not a gastronomical Jewish mother, just a Jewish mother. I don't like gefilte fish either. I guess I'm a pretty obvious Jewish mother. Well, that's not bad to be. That's all right. Matter of fact, that's good to be.
What are you doing with your hands?
Just playing. I do this often. Say I don't smoke. So what else you're going to do with your hands? It doesn't look to suck your thumb.
That's also the Jewish mother. She has reasons for everything.
And if I don't have one, I'll make one up. The ordered universe. What's wrong with being a Jewish mother?
Did I say there's something wrong with the Jewish mother? I only say I have difficulties in dealing with them. There is a famous story of a man who was such an excellent swordsman that he could hit even a raindrop, and when it was raining, he used his sword instead of an umbrella. Now, there are also intellectual and behavioristic swordsmen who, in answer to every question statement, or whatever hit it back. So, whatever you do immediately, you're knocked out with some kind of reply, playing stupid or poor me or whatever the games are. She's perfect.
I never realized that.
You see, again the sword, playing stupid. I want once more to restate what I said earlier. Maturation is the transcendence from environmental support to self support. The neurotic, instead of mobilizing his own resources, puts all his energy into manipulating the environment for support. And what you do is again and again manipulate me. You manipulate your husband, you manipulate everybody to come to the rescue of the damsel in distress.
How did I manipulate you?
You see again? This question, for instance, this is very important for maturation. Change your questions to statements. Every question is a hook. And I would say that the majority of your questions are inventions to torture yourself and torture others. But if you change the question to a statement, you open up a lot of your background. This is one of the best means to develop good intelligence. So change your question to a statement.
Well, that implies that there's a fault to me. Didn't you intend it so?
Put Fritz in that chair and ask him that question yourself.
Now there is a role reversal in the counseling session.
Don't you like Jewish mothers? Did you have one that you did not like? Well, I like them. They are just a very difficult lot to deal with. Well, what makes them so difficult? Well, they are very dogmatic and very opinionated and inflexible, and the box that they construct for themselves to grow in is a little narrower than many. They're less easy to therapies. Does everybody have to be a subject to your therapy? No, no, no. Right. Well, did you ever switch chairs like this with yourself?
Oh, yes. Oh, even I get sucked in.
You said you had a problem with Jewish mothers. At this juncture, the husband adds,
Do you understand now why I did not answer?
That's right, because you see how a Jewish mother does not say, "You should not smoke so much." She says, "You need an ashtray." Okay, thank you.
Let us summarize what we have learned. Gestalt counseling is an experiential approach that stresses present awareness and the quality of contact between the individual and the environment. The major focus is on assisting the client to become aware of how behaviors, once part of creatively adjusting to past environment, may be interfering with effective functioning and living in the present. The goal of the approach is, first and foremost, awareness. Another therapeutic aim is to assist clients in exploring how they make contact with elements of their environment. Change occurs through the heightened awareness of what is. Because of the Gestalt counselor has no agenda beyond assisting clients to increase their awareness, there is no need to label a client's behavior as resistance. Instead, the counselor simply follows this new process as it emerges. The counselor has faith that self regulation is a naturally unfolding process that does not have to be controlled. With awareness, the clients are able to reconcile polarities and dichotomies within themselves and proceed toward the reintegration of all aspects of themselves. The counselor works with the client to identify the figures or most salient aspects of the individual or environmental field as they emerge from the background. The Gestalt counselor believes each client is capable of self regulating if those figures are engaged and resolved so others can replace them. The role of the Gestalt counselor is to help clients to identify the most pressing issues, needs, and interests, and design experiments that carry those figures into contact or that explore resistances to contact and awareness. In order to enhance one's understanding of this counseling process and the intervention strategies adopted by the Gestalt counselor, it would be worthwhile to refer to the remaining quadrants of this module and the next one.